What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. This podcast is sponsored by Berman Falk Hospitality Group, a design-driven furniture manufacturer who specializes in custom case goods and seating for hotel guest rooms. Today's guest is the brand leader of Embassy Suites by Hilton. She's the mastermind behind the brand's strategy and performance. She's all about driving growth, sustaining guest loyalty, fostering a vibrant brand culture, and keeping the brand fresh. She caught the hospitality bug while marketing theme parks and resorts, and the rest is history. We're really excited to have on Bonnie Campagnuolo today. Welcome, Bonnie.
How are you today? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so great to have you on. And I'm really excited for our conversation for a couple of different reasons. The reason why I'm most excited is because, many architects and designers listen to this show. And we're very intrigued by when a brand decides it wants to freshen up or change or evolve, or, there's a whole spectrum of how a brand can either revolt or revolution to evolution. And there's like a whole spectrum within it. So I'm excited to dig into that. But before we wind up getting there at some point in our conversation, um, what does hospitality mean to you? How do you define it?
For me, hospitality is at its core about how you prepare for somebody to enter your space, whether that's your house, your restaurant, or your hotel. And that person should feel like they've been considered, they've been thought about. And so, on a personal level, it might be that I always have my sister's favorite coffee creamer in the fridge if she's coming. There's a framed picture on the nightstand of us of a trip we took together or something, and everything's ready for them, but beyond just being clean, right? And I've thought about what she's gonna need while she's there, where she's gonna charge her phone, is she gonna have room for all of her things? And when it comes to hotels, it's the same thing. How is somebody really gonna use this space? How's a business traveler gonna use it? How's a leisure traveler going to use it? How's a Taylor Swift concert goer gonna use the space? Where are they gonna make their bracelets and get glittered up, right? So at the end of the day, the person walks away going, "They thought about me. They thought about uh, what this was gonna be like."
Mm. Well, I'm traveling to Toronto with my daughter and the bracelets in a bag, and I'm sure we'll find somewhere to put it. I don't know where I think I don't remember where we're staying, but it is in the Hilton family. Um, but it's not an Embassy Suites. But I can walk to the stadium because apparently it's on lockdown. So I'm very excited to go have that shared moment with her. Um, I appreciate how you started with your personal experience, talking about, for instance, as an example of your sister coming in. And then from a brand perspective, when you consider all the different traveler types that you mentioned, um, it must be very difficult to make each of them feel considered because they're all so different, right? So, what are, whether I think you said business, leisure, family, and I'm sure there's some other ones in there, but is there a Venn diagram for all of them that makes Embassy Suites special? And I know that you've only did a big brand renovation in, I guess, about 12 years ago, and you tweaked it about 2 years ago. But what are the ways that, those circles in the Venn diagram keep moving because the marketplace and customer is always evolving. But how do you Embassy Suites like focus in from a brand perspective on the center of those different circles?
Sure, and, the brand was founded, 40 years ago by Herbie Feldman, and his goal was to give travelers more, and from the beginning, we've had strong business 7 days a week with leisure adults, leisure families, business travelers, group and meeting clients. So the generosity of the brand has been well received by those audiences for decades now. So when we renovate, we don't goof with that. But um, everybody likes a great breakfast. So that's one of the core things we're known for. Free beverages in the evening to end your day or start your evening is just a nice touch. You don't get that combination of things everywhere. And then everybody has a suite. So you have space to relax and space to sleep. As we have evolved how we work, that means now you can be on a call without a bed in the background, without your stuff strewn about. Um, Core to the room is that door between the sleeping area and the parlor area. So kids can be asleep on a pull-out sofa. Parents can be on the other side watching TV after children have gone to bed. Um, or today, if you've got two working adults traveling, one can be on a call in one area and one can be on a call in the other area before they go off for whatever their day entails. So that's the beauty of the room and the amenities works for all those folks.
We have a couple of different audiences that listen to this. We have designers and architects. We have people who are in hotel operations and brand. We also have a lot of entrepreneurs. And I think what's interesting in the seat that you're sitting in as like the conductor of the brand experience and the champion of the brand experience for Embassy Suites. For those types of stakeholders, so I bring in the entrepreneur one because oftentimes companies are reinventing or evolving their brands. So that's why I brought them into this conversation. The designers and architects, and they're the ones who are actually doing the built environment of that new Embassy Suites or whatever other hotel brand it might be. So, from your perspective, when you're kicking off a brand evolution or revolution, so I guess 12 years ago you did a revolution, like it was a big, big change, and then 2 years ago there were some tweaks, so maybe more of an evolution. How do you, as Bonnie and as Hilton at large, say, okay, it's time to change this brand, evolve, or really a wholesale change? What's the process between doing that and then taking in all of the different channels of business and experience that a hotel brings to the table?
So I'll start with 12 years ago. The way the brand was established in the early builds have a large center atrium, the suites all around the center, pulling in light from the center, and then common space on the lower floors. Meeting space varies.
Mm.
Um, but the core of what people value involves a bar, breakfast area with ample seating, and then those suites. So it became too expensive for new owners to build a large atrium like that, and your air conditioning and taking care of that middle space isn't necessarily efficient from a build perspective in today's cost to build scenario. Um, so the newer builds
And
maintain.
just so I'm clear, because of that large atrium and larger footprint and the huge built environment, the consideration was because the cost to build was the main driving focus there.
Yeah, I mean, building a hotel like that is, um, it's a spicy meatball.
Yes, it it is a spicy meatball.
So, when we did the prototype evolution in about 12 years ago, we needed to rethink that space on the lower floors,
Mhm.
maintain what we delivered and what the brand always delivers, and then capture that the magic of those suites up above. In that time, most of our classics have a linear suite. So you walk in, you have the parlor, bathroom in the middle, and then sleeping space closest to the exterior window. In the newer models, the rooms are side by side. So you walk into the parlor, but the bedroom is off to either the right or the left. But both those rooms have exterior light because you're not pulling in light from a center atrium. Some of our properties will mix those room types to fit the space of the plot of land that we have. If it needs to be an L shape, then the linear suites help make that corner, and then the wings end up the side by sides.
So, from the Embassy Suites perspective, 12 years ago, cost to build and building those big atrium core and shell construction sites, that was really the driver. But if you were to talk to some of your colleagues who are brand leaders in other brands, what are some considerations that they may have considered that it wasn't necessarily a cost to build that pushed them into doing a brand overhaul or refresh? What are some other like buckets, if you will, that other brands under the Hilton umbrella would consider?
So cost to build is always going to be a factor, a pretty big factor. And then guest use and how they actually use the space based on their travel needs or purpose, right? For instance, Homewood Suites went through an evolution of their prototype um, in 2021, and their guests are long stay guests. So that clientele has a very different need set. Um, it's really important that guest laundry be well lit, clean, ample because they're staying for 30 days. So that they need a attractive place to get things done because they're living with us. Same with the room needs to be someplace where they can feel at home.
And I guess for you to bring up that one, for me, one of the craziest, like you always want to stay true to your heritage, if you will, when there's a brand evolution going on, um, less extreme to more extreme. But I was really shocked that they got rid of the duck. Like that was always such a core part of the branding of that. But logos play a big role in all this. Um, so going back to, I use the metaphor of being a conductor, but you brought up the spicy meatball. So let's go to a chef. So if you're the chef of the brand, right, and you're creating this new recipe, um, you say, okay, it's time. Cost to build in your case is the main driver. There's a lot of other considerations. How do you start implementing that from a design perspective, an operations perspective, an F&B perspective, and whatever other channels that I'm not thinking about because you're dealing with so many more of them. I just really play in one of those buckets. But how do you as the chef kind of assemble all of these ingredients and build the teams and then kind of create alignment and a path forward?
When we get started on a project like that, and what we did when we approached Embassy Suites a couple of years ago is we looked at what was working, what people really like. We looked at what could change, what they wish they had. Sometimes a customer can't tell you what they wish they had because they don't know what the options are.
Yeah.
So you have to play with, um, you have to ask questions in a specific way so that they tell you what they're looking to be able to do or to have. They may not be able to tell you, I want that kind of a faucet or I want whatever. Then we look at are there things we think we can't touch that maybe we should? Are there unwritten rules that we're working with here? And which of should we break any of those? And there definitely were some unwritten rules that um, we thought we couldn't touch and might save us some money. Um, and then we did some research to say, is it worth breaking this? And we found out that it wasn't. For instance, at every Embassy Suites, In each room, there's a wet bar. So there's a sink, a microwave, and a refrigerator outside of the bathroom. So you always obviously have a sink in the bathroom, and then you have this wet bar area. I said, well, what if we got rid of the sink at the wet bar? That would save us a whole bunch of plumbing. What do we think about that? And customers did not like that. They said, no bueno. They like having that. They fill up their water bottles. Um, they if they're cooking something simple, they need water, it's right there. It gives you a little place to entertain. If you're gonna not that you're gonna have a beverage with your daughter before you go to Taylor Swift, but
I probably will. Come on.
I mean, okay, I don't know how old she is. That's
Well, she won't have it. I'll have it.
oh, okay, you definitely should. But research told us don't play with that. People like that.
So you didn't break that.
We did not break it. I tried to
Okay.
break it, and customer said don't.
Oh, because the driving goal was cost to build and all the plumbing and everything else. Okay, got it. Um, I'm curious when you do the research. So basically, you're at this programmatic stage where you're like, okay, it's time. Cost to build is the driving factor. I'm really intrigued by the research you do. So are those in focus groups? Are they by email surveys? Like, do you bring in consultants to do that? Are you leading it? Like, how do you gather that data at first?
There are a number of things that we do. So we will, in some cases, we might build a model room and bring people into it and ask for their feedback. We will do studies where we ask people how they're using their room. We ask them if it's okay if we come in and take a few pictures and kind of see where they've unpacked, if they've unpacked. Um, and then we'll do surveys. But sometimes you have to get in the space. At things like a pull-out sofa, how do you use the pull-out sofa? Who's sleeping on the pull-out sofa? Adults or kids? If you use the pull-out sofa, do you put it away every day?
And that's an operational question.
Well, if they put it away every day, then the sofa is available as seating in the parlor, and you don't need extra chairs. So if you
Mm,
think, okay, it's a double queen and there's a sleeper sofa. So you could have 6 people in the suite. If the bed gets put away, now you've got space for 3 on the sofa and you've got at least 3 chairs at the dining/desk that's in that area. So now everybody place has a place to sit. The ottoman also is a movable place for somebody to sit without
mm.
adding another side chair, which adds to clutter and takes away from a place where somebody could put their suitcase.
So I love model rooms because it's something that you can walk through, experience, touch, feel. You can have guests, you can have all the stakeholders involved walk through and give feedback. But I'm also from your expertise as like the brand chef. I hope you don't mind me using the chef because I like the conductor, but the spicy meatball brought me in. So, but as the brand chef, before I just know all that it takes to make a model room. It's a Herculean effort that's driven by crazy schedules, a lot of different inputs. But oftentimes, I personally don't get to see kind of all the recipe making that happens way before at the brand level. For like for your operational counterpart, your design and construction counterpart, your F&B counterpart, all of this stuff has to get assembled, turned into drawings and boards and samples. And how do you gather all of that data from all those different stakeholders before you even get to putting the pen to the paper to make the model room?
So they're involved in the front end when we're saying, what could we change? What should we not change? What are things we think we can't change that we should consider? So they're all involved. And then for our Embassy Suites process, we did a cardboard room before we did design. When we were just in the construction phase at the Hilton McLean, we did in a ballroom, we did a cardboard room so that we could walk through and kind of feel it with a movable wall because if it's a double queen, the wall's further out. If it's a king, we scooch it in. So we walk through, we had cardboard furniture in there. So it's not about design, it's about space. Um, and then for the other room types that build off that base, we had the floor plan printed in life size. So we rolled it out on the floor so you could walk through it and feel what that space might feel like. Do we have room for the pull-out sofa? What does it feel like if you're in this space? So that was a really geeky, fun day to be playing with that. I've had my husband come and walk through it too.
Okay, so the audience that you have there, is it everyone from Chris Nassetta to your husband that are going through and giving feedback?
Yes, yes.
Wow. And outside at what point do you bring the outside consultants too? Or are they doing it all at the same time? Like, I'm very curious about this because then I want to get into we have the recipe now. Let's go get the ingredients.
The partners were our core to all of that. So they were with us in the construction because it had to make sense all the way through.
Mm,
So we kind of build it, think about how it could all work, and then pull out a room and build it in a hotel. Once we were kind of comfortable with where we were, the executive team came and walked through. Chris likes to make sure the shower's big, you can get your elbows up, and
mm.
that you're not going to get wet turning on the shower.
But don't knock over the cardboard wall when you're doing
Don't
it.
knock over. It's pretty sturdy. It's pretty amazing. And
Oh, wow.
technology has let us test more less expensively than 20 years ago. We have a model room in Memphis, in our office in Memphis, and it's more like a set. So it doesn't need to be as expensive as really building it. But again, it lets you have that space. And that one has all the design elements in it as well, from FF&E and garbage cans and amenities, bath amenities on the wall. It's all in.
Hey, everybody. We've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now. And one of the themes that consistently comes up is sustainability. And I'm just really proud to announce that our sponsor, Berman Falk Hospitality Group, is the first within our hospitality industry to switch to sustainable and recyclable packaging, eliminating the use of styrofoam. Please check out their impact page in the show notes for more info. It's amazing how useful even a cardboard mock-up is versus like the fully done up model room because I'm always thinking about where's the disruption coming from? How are robots going to take over? The rendering capabilities that exist now, even from a 3D walkthrough, they're so sophisticated and incredible. But I don't know. I feel like with all the different trades and materials, and this could just be like boomer mindset that I have right now. I'm not a boomer, but just like the actual walkthrough of a model room, whether it's cardboard or not, the amount of data and tactile data for hotels in particular, I love all the renderings as a tool as well, but I don't really see the model room going away anytime soon because there's so many different stakeholders in a hotel that need to see if I don't know, the vacuum cleaner fits under the bed base or where they can store extra pillow. I don't know. I can't even consider all of the considerations, but it just seems to me that that's such a vital part of everything that we do, and I hope it doesn't go away.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And housekeeping is a huge stakeholder in it. Even if it's not a prototype build, if a hotel is renovating, including that your head of housekeeping to just take a look and look at what furniture is being spec'd. Um, where's the vacuum going to hit? Um, if we've
Where
got
are the plugs?
where are all the plugs for the housekeepers and for the guests? How hard is it to get behind the faucet in the bathroom? If it's a teeny tiny little space, that's really tough to clean every time.
Well, no, then you just have the screen for housekeepers with small hands.
Right. Or and then how are they gonna clean the top of the mirror? How tall is the mirror? Um, in some hotels, they've been testing, robot vacuums, so the vacuum can run itself in the parlor while they're working on the bathroom or the sleeping area, but if there are shears on the window that pool a little bit on the floor, those are gonna get caught.
Oh, yeah, and then you rip down all your drapery.
Um, those types of things.
Okay, so technology, it's all happening, and it kinda bores me to talk about, but I do wanna go there, because I do have the fear of the robots taking over. But one of the things I wanna go back to, which I think was really, really intriguing, is when you're interviewing your guests, either in person or focus groups, or how do you find out what they wish they had? That's like the unknown unknown. Like, what's the framework and line of questioning that you ask them to kind of dig into their brain and look under the hood and say, you wish you had this, but you haven't even considered it? Do you have an example of that? Or like, I'm very intrigued by the asking those clarifying questions and kind of getting them to come along with you and consider the things that they hadn't considered. Because I think that can really help in any brand or business or just with children, for instance.
It's it is hard to get at, and so there's a couple different ways. We can ask what's most important to you, and then figure out if there's trade-offs, if they'd be willing to give up this versus that. Some things they may like, but it's not necessarily worth paying more to have. Um, because sometimes it's a cost factor, right? So either because it's an operational cost or it costs more to build. If somebody's not willing to pay more for whatever that benefit is, then we have to think about, do we build it into every room or is that something that you do in some rooms? Um, then in the physical space, you can ask, how would you use that? Or when you see how somebody's using a current state room, that's when you ask, okay, so why is that over there? Well, I didn't have any place else to put it. Or um, I have, a sleep apnea machine that I need to have next to me and I need to have water for it or what have you. So I moved that table to put it next to me.
What are some of the most surprising what they wish they had, so the unknown unknowns that have kind of bubbled to the surface, whether you took action on them or not?
Early on, when I say early on, I mean as everybody having 17 devices with them. So everybody in your travel party having 17 devices, regardless of the age, right? The adults have computers, iPads, AirPods, phones. So where are we going to charge all of that? What needs to be next to the bed? What can be someplace else? And then what are the ancillary things that get plugged in someplace else, but they all are charging overnight? And then how many of them need to be on Wi-Fi to work right? I would say one of the things that we built into the new prototype is that even if you've got 2 people in the room, having a door between where the toilet is and where the sink and the shower is means that more people can be utilizing that space at the same time. Right? Even if you're married, we like that door.
The door is really interesting because I'll let you finish your thought, but when I think of those original embassy suites, the big atrium spaces, there were the 2 different areas, like the living and the bed, but there was like a threshold, not necessarily a door between the 2. And I feel like in the new ones, there is a door between the sleeping and the in the bedroom, and then obviously you're talking about the bathroom one, but that was a very big change, I would think too, and was that one of those unknown unknowns?
That door, so you may have been in an anomaly, but there's always been a door between the living space and the sleeping space. Because if you're a parent, that's priceless,
Yes.
especially when they're little, and even if you could now at Hilton, you can confirm your connecting rooms, but even if you have a connecting room, there's an age before which you don't want your kids over there. You want your kids next to you. So that door is priceless.
So aside from the bathroom door and the other devices and things like that, as you're reconsidering, what do you think the biggest change in the Embassy Suites evolution has been that took you by surprise?
The When we went into it, we were going in as a tweak. And so we tweaked the rooms, and that was an evolution. Our room product has always been strong, um, but the revolution of the new prototype is in the public space and the back of house. So we were able to make that more efficient by you'd have to be deep into the floor plans to understand, but um, the back of house space was split into two sections. So team members would have to cross over public space to do certain things. And so we got all of it together, which allowed us to shrink our square footage of that common space. Also allowed us to shrink our footprint and frontage because instead of being a long rectangular building, now it's an L shape. And so our frontage is less square feet and or less linear feet. And then the footprint is less square feet. And then that's the base, right? We kind of play a kit of parts game. So if you've got breakfast, bar, and rooms fitting the prototype, then you can add, an owner can add on a larger restaurant if they're in an area where they're going to be pulling in local business in addition to folks in house. Meeting space can expand and contract based on what is in the area. And some of our markets, our hotels are the convention space in the area. And so you've got hotels with, 40, 50,000 square feet of meeting space.
So there's about 260 plus or minus Embassy Suites in the United States. Um, are most of those all purpose built Embassy Suites? As you know, we're out of COVID, we're looking to the future. Are there and brands are kind of trading flags with ownership groups, and how many of those 264, or as you look forward in the pipeline, are conversions, or is that something you typically don't do with Embassy Suites?
It's rare because they're generally purpose built. And I say that, um, but if I look back over the last 5 years, we've got three that are either conversions or adaptive reuse. So, Knoxville downtown is a historic building that we were able to do an adaptive reuse on. Rockford Riverfront in Illinois is a gorgeous adaptive reuse. So it's not out of the question, but those bones don't exist um, as frequently as you would find in some other hotel brands.
And then I know you mentioned in Memphis you have the model room with all the that's all has the proper fit and finish that you expect of your brand standard of Embassy Suites. Um, but there are many Embassy Suites that are in a major metro that need to differentiate themselves, and the owner may say, like, "I want this to not be that. I want it to be something different." How do you, as a brand, give them the freedom of the market that they're in, but also make sure that the guest is having a similar experience?
So we don't dictate a package of furniture, for instance. So it's a design intent brand is what we call it. So we have a design narrative that gives guidance on color schemes and where we absolutely want local flavor that fits within the brand. But this is not a brand where you're purchasing A, B, or C um, for your space.
But there are some ownership groups that are just like, "I want an Embassy Suites, tell me what to do."
Yes, and so we can make that easy for them, and by providing here's all the specs of what you see in the model room, but we do have many owners who want to design it.
Any experience from a brand perspective, whether it's a built one, a virtual one, a product one. How did you find your way into hospitality? Because I know you started off in advertising. You worked at some really big advertising firms, some of the biggest in the world. How did you find your way and kind of your home in hospitality?
So oddly enough, I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and never thought I would work in, the travel business. I was gonna be in advertising. So I worked for ad agencies, but I had travel and tourism clients. And I had interned at Universal Studios Orlando when I was in college and ended up working for Disney's in-house agency at Walt Disney World. And then that kind of was it. Travel's so much fun. Um, and marketed their resorts in addition to theme parks and all the experiences there. Found my way to Marriott Vacation Club and then came to Hilton in McLean working on resorts marketing, which
Mm.
is a great world is resorts. So I have a soft spot for resorts and great beaches.
And then how did you go from resorts marketing into being the head chef of Embassy Suites from a brand perspective?
So Hilton's a great place to work. There's so many opportunities here. In my resorts marketing role grew to be the Hilton Hotels and Resorts brand marketing, and from there moved on to the full service brand team. Was working on the department name at the time was customer experience and innovation, and so that was kind of part of the path in playing with what can we do at our hotels? What should we do?
Mm.
What do we need to solve for owners and for guests, whether it's meeting space, uh, whether it's accenting what we've got, whether it's scent, bedding. Uh, so that took all types of different paths. And then sometime in 2020, I I came into this role on Embassy Suites, and it has been just a blast and very rewarding.
Wait, was that like in the midst of the pandemic or like before it really started
Yeah,
in
no,
earnest?
July of 2020, I started this job. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um,
Huh.
but the team members and the hotel leaders at Embassy Suites, our owners, are all great folks. Our guests are amazing. So it's a great. I have the best job
Well, and Hilton, and by virtue of that, Hilton is constantly rated one of the best places to work
in the world.
in the world. And I know specifically amongst Fortune 500 companies, which says a lot. So, um, there's a lot of people who also listen to this, and I get so much feedback from so many different channels, but one channel is, "Hey, I'm doing this one thing in our industry, but considering going to ownership or to brand or, into operations or development." And I think people really appreciate talking to guests, or when I talk to guests such as yourself, because they get a different experience. So you came from advertising and then into marketing for resorts, and now you're on the brand side of Hilton. What would you say to, let's say, an architect or a designer who says, "You know what? I want to get onto the brand side." Like what's some experience or a first step that you could give them to consider?
The first thing I would say is that department names and titles are different in every company, and even the same job sometimes may involve more of one thing than another. In marketing, we talk about the 4 Ps, right? The old world is the 4 Ps: product, place, price, and promotion. At one point in marketing, we had a lot of input into the product side, not just the promotion side. And that part of branding is what I loved in college and really was excited about. Um, got started in advertising. And again, different clients will pull in their ad agencies for help all across their customer experience. So that's the really exciting part of branding. And sometimes that's physical. So if you're an architect, how does that physicality come to life in the brand experience? And now you've got agencies doing, all of that and
Mm,
specializing in that, or retail experience, right? Part of the retail experience is very physical. So for me in this brand role, I do get to play in product place pricing, which is very interesting, and a different day every day. So, if an architect or a designer looking to get into brand, there are multiple brands that are very architect architecture and or design driven, and those are brands that are perfect for somebody with that eye. Versus there are certain brands that are very service driven. So somebody who comes from a very, high touch culture, um, background is going to work great on, say, a luxury brand where it is really all about the service
mm.
and the interaction with people.
Evolving or reinventing a brand from a Hilton perspective, I know that sometimes you may do it internally with an internal design team. Sometimes you may bring in outside consultants. Um, in your experience, what's the split on doing it amongst all of your brands, doing it internally versus bringing in outside consultants to give you different perspective?
We almost always bring in an outside consultant to help with us because the internal team are experts at our brand and are also managing all of the hotels that exist today who are going through renovations and things like that. So they have responsibilities to make sure we're getting approvals back to owners, doing model room walkthroughs, like keeping the process going there. Um, and then they're guiding our external partners in the work on the new product. And sometimes they have um, intel on products that are coming, um, technology that has evolved, um, engineered flooring, for instance, or tile that we may not even know about, and we want to touch and feel and see if that fits with our design aesthetic that we're going for. So we definitely are always bringing in external partners.
And then if you're an external architect or designer that is interested, maybe not in changing their career to go into the brand side wholeheartedly, but they're like, "Oh, I have some really good perspective and I'd love to get in front of Hilton to see if we could concept or be a part of reimagining a brand out there." What's the best way for them to get involved? Whether it's from a design or even a brand graphic perspective.
So there's like two ends of the business, right? There's the people who have hotels today who need to renovate them on a pretty regular basis. And it might be minor at year 7 and a bigger project at year 14, but that work is constantly happening across the spectrum. Um, and then from a brand perspective, knowing each and all of the big hospitality companies operate similarly in that they have a team who's focused on that and um, builds and maintains relationships and sees what's going on in the marketplace. Generally, the folks that we work with on brand projects are people or firms who have done hotel design before or hotel architecture before because, there's just things about it.
Got it. And then I know I kind of pushed us past the technology component, but it's always evolving. Um, whether it's robots or new MEP systems that like people don't necessarily see, but can increase efficiency and make guest experience better. Keyless entry. How do you, how does Embassy Suites evaluate that constantly changing landscape of things that guests may not see or interact with, but it makes their experience better potentially and the hotels more efficient?
That generally is coming from, um, the mothership, right? From Hilton to pull through all of the brands, right? Digital key is something that you can experience at all of our hotels, all of our brands, um, all around the world. And our honors members come to know and love those and expect them, right? I love being able to go straight to my room and know that, oh, my plane's about to take off. I have my key. Perfect. Will go straight to the hotel and that'll be great.
And what about like from an MEP perspective? Like, was that more of a design and construction type thing? Like whether it's, I don't know, those PTAC units or whatever they're using to cool or light or just what all those systems that make the building run. How are you always evaluating those from a brand and guest experience, or even those robots that you were mentioning?
That depends on what it is and
Mm.
where it's coming from. And we may see an management company trying out the robots.
Oh, so so they may try that, and then this is working. Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then you're just open-minded and evaluating, be like, "Oh, this is great. Let's bring it to all of our other stakeholders as well."
Yes. Yeah. Depending on what it is. And then it can be an option that we offer. Hey, for certain hotels, this might make a ton of sense. Here's how you get more information, or here's how to order. Um, and some things, it's a standard, and everybody needs to change your locks so that we can deliver digital key.
Got it. And then now, Bonnie, I want you to put your chef hat back on. As Embassy Suites has done the big shift 12 years ago and tweaks 2 years ago, with your chef hat on, looking to the future, what's most exciting for you about what you see in Hilton or Embassy Suites' future?
I think we have a great product that people from around the world will love. And we just opened a new property in Dubai. We have one in the pipeline for next year in Turkey. We opened a great resort in Aruba. I think we have a lot of potential outside the US. Really excited to see that start to come to life, and having that kind of a jewel property in Dubai gives us a great example and something that folks from around the world see in a gateway city like Dubai.
And then with that chef hat still on, with all of your experience to where we are speaking right now, and then looking at the future, if the Bonnie I'm speaking to right now could appear in front of the advertising Bonnie, what advice would you have for yourself?
Probably something that I kind of started doing early in my career, which was make decisions that leave doors open, not ones that close doors. So don't get yourself stuck in a particular place early in your career. Be open, work on different clients, learn different types of business. I had an RV client, I had Pizza Hut as a client, like just all over the place. And then see where you want to go, because at 23, what do you know?
And then that's actually really interesting from the advertising perspective and the clients you mentioned, because I used the example before, like if you had advice to architects and designers that wanted to get into the branding side, what would it be? And thank you for answering that. But how do you think starting in advertising helped you on your journey to where you are now?
I've always been interested in the target audience. So whether it's a marketing message that's going to a target audience or an experience in hospitality, that's you have to know who your target is. Even thinking about the very first question, the core of hospitality is thinking about somebody else, thinking about the message recipient, thinking about the person who's coming into your home. And that's the core of marketing and advertising is knowing your audience.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway from here, and what I appreciate so much is that idea of the 4 Ps: product, place, price, and promotion. And from a brand perspective, you could be an expert in or a specialist in any one of those, but still be accretive to the overall brand experience and brand evolution. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is I hear from so many people that, "Oh, I'm considering a change, but I'm not this," or that's like these limiting beliefs. But I think my takeaway from the conversation with you is, and as you're considering a brand, there's like so many points of entry, and from a brand perspective, all perspectives are really welcome because we're all able to uncover those unknown unknowns, or even sometimes those outside perspectives. They're also helpful in saying, "Hey, could we take out the mini bar or the wet bar that you mentioned?" Like, we all come in with all of these life experiences, and we all can be accretive to it. And I think it's also like, being able to work under that umbrella and know that you're just a part of this overall experience, whether or not you're coming at from one of the 4 Ps, everyone can add to it. And I just if I think the takeaway here is if anyone is listening and had a limiting belief about wanting to get into brand, there's so many different avenues to get in there. And like a chef, I don't know. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And the thing about when I talk to friends who are looking for jobs or thinking about their next path, and I look around Hilton, we have everybody here. We have attorneys, we have tech people, we've got supply chain experts, and within our supply management team, experts in each of the verticals there. We have sales teams that are experts in sports, in association, in leisure and tour. So there's so many jobs in hospitality, whether it's Hilton or another hospitality company. It's such a great industry.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because, like, at the at the corporate level, you have all of those different roles and seats, if you will, and specialists. But also, I think one of the things I find so intriguing about hotels, and I think why a lot of entrepreneurs listen to this as well, each hotel has so many different channels of business, whether it is F&B, or if it's at a resort, it could be equipment rental, or it could be just going out and having all of these other experiences. And it's almost like a lab. Each hotel, each property, and also at the corporate level, it's it's just a constant laboratory of innovation to, I don't know, to meet that guest or that challenge where they are, or to consider them, like you said. And I don't know, that I think that's why I've been in hospitality for more than half my life. It's Yes, I do this one thing of furniture, but it's a platform and an entryway that really quenches my curiosity to learn so much about just people and businesses. And I don't know, I thank you for sharing, because you're just basically reinforcing why I've chosen the path that I've been on. So thank you.
Sure. Always fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Bonnie, if people wanted to learn more about you or Embassy Suites, what's a good place for them to do that?
So I'd say LinkedIn, Embassy Suites has a page, a profile, and Bonnie Campagnuolo has a profile. So that's where we are. All of my, sordid history is all there.
Perfect. Well, I just want to give you a heartfelt thank you for coming out here and talking about Embassy Suites and Hilton, as a brand, and giving perspective and potentially inspiration to those who may be considering making a change. So I thank you wholeheartedly for your time.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss without thanking all of the listeners and watchers. Um, Without you guys and the growth every week, we wouldn't be here talking to incredible people like Bonnie. And I just thank you. So if this has impacted your perspective in any way, please share it. Please like it. Please leave feedback. It all helps get the word out. And I appreciate you and thank you.